Some stories make you double-check the title because they can't be real. They shouldn't be, but they are. This one is different, not just because of the brutality, but because of what it says about fear, silence, and the failures of justice. It's the kind of case that stays with you, a name that shouldn't be forgotten. This is the true story of Junko Furuta, a story the world needs to hear. This video contains graphic content involving torture, abuse, and murder. The purpose of sharing this story is not to glorify it, but to remember the victim and to reflect on how something like this could happen. Junko Furuta was a 17-year-old high school student living in Masato, a city in Saitama Prefecture, Japan. She was smart, well-liked, and came from a stable, hard-working family. She didn't drink, smoke, or party. She focused on school, had a part-time job, and dreamed of a normal future. She was described by classmates as cheerful, kind, and strong-willed. Junko had recently accepted a job offer post-graduation, something many of her peers admired. She was living a life that seemed completely ordinary and safe, until one night everything changed. On November 25, 1988, Junko was walking home from her part-time job at around 8:30 p.m. What she didn't know was that she was being watched. Hiroshi Miyano, a local 18-year-old with known Yakuza connections and a history of violence, had seen her earlier and decided she would become his next victim. He and his friend Nobuharu Minato devised a plan. Miyano approached Junko on a bike, pretending to be lost. As she tried to help, Minato attacked her from behind. Together, they dragged her to an abandoned warehouse. And from that moment, Junko's life entered a living nightmare. Over the next 44 days, Junko was held captive in the home of Minato's parents. She was not hidden. Everyone in the household, including the parents, knew she was there. But they were too afraid of Hiroshi Miyano's Yakuza connections to intervene. Junko was tortured daily, both physically and psychologically. She was raped multiple times by Miyano and his friends, including Joe Ogura and Yasushi Watanabe, sometimes over a dozen times in a single day. Reports suggest she was assaulted by over 100 men, many of them invited over by the core group of boys. She was starved, beaten with metal bars, had her bones broken, her genitals mutilated. Objects were inserted into her body, including glass bottles, scissors, and lit cigarettes. Her face was disfigured. Her body burned with hot wax, lighters, and even firecrackers. At one point, her eardrums were ruptured, and she could no longer stand due to the damage to her legs. She begged them to kill her, but they didn't. Instead, they tricked her into writing letters home saying she had run away and was safe. Meanwhile, the boys played video games, watched TV, and carried on with their lives, while Junko lay dying in the same house. On day 44, January 4th, 1989, the abuse reached a final, fatal point. After losing a game of mahjong, Miyano and the others beat Junko with an iron bar for over 2 hours. She died the next day, alone, bruised, broken. To hide the evidence, the boys stuffed Junko's body into a 55-gallon drum filled with concrete and left it in a construction site. They believed they'd gotten away with murder. But just weeks later, during questioning about another crime, Hiroshi Miyano accidentally confessed. Police were shocked and initially didn't believe the scale of the crime. But once they found the drum, the truth was undeniable. Junko was identified by fingerprints. Her body had been compressed, twisted, and mangled beyond recognition. The nation of Japan was horrified. News reports were censored to protect the identity of the underage perpetrators, but the public outrage was so overwhelming that their names were leaked anyway. Despite the monstrous nature of their crime, none of the 4 main perpetrators received life in prison. Because they were under 20, they were tried as juveniles. Hiroshi Miyano got 20 years. The others got between 5 and 9 years. Some were released early. One reoffended and went back to prison. Another boasted about the crime later in life. Junko's parents were devastated, not just by the loss of their daughter, but by the failure of the justice system. Citizens across Japan demanded reform, and her case helped push the country to revise juvenile sentencing laws. But the damage had been done. Junko Furuta's story is not just a tale of cruelty. It's a warning of what happens when people turn a blind eye, when parents stay silent, when justice is softened for monsters. But more than anything, it's a story of a girl who deserved a future. In her school yearbook, Junko is smiling, bright, hopeful, unaware of what would happen just months later. That's how we should remember her. Not as a victim, not as a case file, but as a person who mattered. If you've made it this far, thank you. It means you chose to listen, to remember her. That matters. A lot more than you might think. If this story stayed with you, consider subscribing to Archive 404. I tell stories that need to be heard, truths buried in darkness, brought into the light. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.